over the past 2 weeks across 23 ballot counts at Starbucks stores across the country. Starbucks Workers United won 20 outright.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Last week in Southern Labor, that is a segment that we do. We try to do it every week. Last week we weren't able to do it because Jonah Furman did not do his newsletter last week. So this is going to be actually the last 2 weeks in Southern Labor. It's a segment that we do every week where we go over what happened in the labor movement in the South last week. We get the information from Jonah Furman's newsletter, whogetsthebird.substack.com, where he compiles everything that happened in the labor movement in the whole United States. So if this is a segment that is interesting to you, you can see what happened in the rest of the country by going to his newsletter, whogetsthebird.substack.com. It's really cool. He pulls like all the NLRB filings, the election filings, wins and losses, news articles about strikes and bargaining updates, stuff like that. Really, really cool, very exhaustive list about what is happening every week in the labor movement. Awesome stuff. So let's get right into it. In new organizing in the last 2 weeks, 461 Starbucks workers at 18 stores filed for union elections with Workers United, including in Atlanta, Georgia, El Paso, Texas, Winter Park, Florida, Glen Allen, Virginia, and Smyrna and Alcoa, Tennessee. Notably, with the Starbucks Workers United campaign, this is not happening in the South, but it is worth mentioning. 91 Starbucks workers at 3 stores in Madison, Fitchburg, and Monona, Wisconsin are apparently unionizing with UFCW, Local 1473, which is clearly a violation of even the most basic understanding of union jurisdiction. But I mean, Workers United is not publicly beefing with them about this. There have been some baristas with Workers United that have said, "This is why are you doing this, UFCW? Why would you not send the leads to us?" But the UFCW International is standing behind this local. It's not like this local is just going out on a limb and organizing these folks by themselves. So very strange behavior from the UFCW, and very strange for them, for their international to stand behind it. It's very weird. And why is that? Why is it not good that just, anybody organizing Starbucks stores anywhere is good? Because you segment their bargaining power. Like, you want it as much as possible, especially while we're in the early stages of this campaign. Everybody going with Workers United. Why? Because they'll have more bargaining power. If you get Starbucks bargaining with 13 different unions, they can pit people against each other much more easily. It's very frustrating behavior. 360 players for the United States Football League are organizing with the Steelworkers Local 37 in Birmingham, Alabama. That's interesting. Looking forward to seeing how that goes. 115 aircraft mechanics for Vertex Aerospace in Cherry Point, North Carolina are organizing with the Machinists. 20 firefighters who work for Aerostar Airport Holding in Carolina, Puerto Rico are unionizing with the Hermandad de Empleados de Oficina. 17 workers for Badger Daylighting in Orange City, Florida are joining the Operating Engineers Local 673, which is the third Badger filing by an Operating Engineers Local since March, which is very cool. In election wins and losses, with the caveat that the NLRB reporting lags behind reality considerably over the past 2 weeks across 23 ballot counts at Starbucks stores across the country, Starbucks Workers United won 20 outright, with 563 workers voting a combined 266 yes to 68 no. That's 80% in favor of the union. There are now officially newly unionized shops across the U.S., including in Leesburg, Virginia, and Tallahassee, Florida. 3 in Phoenix, Eugene, and Raleigh, North Carolina were unsuccessful on initial count, but at least some of these have a potentially determinative number of ballots challenged by the company, so that could end up in a win for the union. 45 workers at Grifols Blood Bank in Gainesville, Florida, voted 19-8 to join UFCW Local 1625. Very cool. In strikes and bargaining, the 500 Chevron workers on strike with Steelworkers Local 5 in Richmond, California. I thought that was Richmond, Virginia when I was. Bummer. But anyway, well,
a lot of cool stuff happens in Richmond, California.
Yeah.
They've had a very impressive progressive movement there, building power at the local level. So I do know that strike has really galvanized the community.
Yeah. Well, since I said it, they're seeking to reopen negotiations with the company after weeks of no contact. Meanwhile, the refinery workers are getting support from environmentalists who took to the Bay to extend the picket line. It'd be very cool if we saw some Republican activists out there, but they don't actually care about energy workers. They care about energy bosses. In D.C., drivers with ATU Local 689 for the D.C. Circulator, the bus lines run by private contractor RATP Dev, struck for 3 days, and get this, won an 18.5% to a 25% pay increase. Part of what provoked the strike was the big pay differential between circulator drivers and their WMATA counterparts. So, which is a clear violation of the union principle of equal pay for equal work. 3,000 workers for Arconic across 4 steelworkers locals in Iowa, Indiana, and Tennessee, and New York are taking strike authorization votes on Thursday. So that would have happened a couple days ago, so we'll see how that turned out. Not satisfied with the brutal months-long strike, a Kellogg's vice president compared BCTGM strikers of 2021 to terrorists, and he was promptly fired.
Also, that actually is great, unironically.
Yeah, that is great that he was fired. It was kind of surprising, thanks to reporting from The Intercept. You'll remember that BCTGM workers at Kellogg's struck, including in, I believe it was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. There was a Tennessee location of that strike. It was nationwide. Elsewhere, in Unite Here news, Local 23 is still pushing for action from the U.S. Senate for its 175 dining workers in D.C., setting a deadline of May 18th for some kind of movement, with a vague threat of escalation. 700 machinists at United Launch Alliance in California, Alabama, and Florida have a new contract, averting a potential strike. We talked about that last week. AFGE is in a fight with the Office of Personnel Management over telework because the office never implemented digital filing systems long advocated by the union and could be required under the Paperwork Reduction Act. Workers are being unnecessarily forced back to in-person work in D.C. In political fights, the Congressional Workers Union enjoyed a big breakthrough, with the chamber taking up the bill to legalize their right to unionize, while House Speaker Pelosi raised the salary floor to a still meager $45,000 a year. Some House Democrats are calling for more funding for the NLRB as well. The UAW and several states filed federal lawsuits against USPS for moving the production of its new electric fleet from a union plant in Wisconsin to a non-union facility in South Carolina. And finally, AFGE Council 238, which is the EPA's biggest union, is calling on the president to declare a climate emergency. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.